Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a very nice lunch. Our next speaker is another Google developers expert who is passionate and regularly speaks about JavaScript, Angular, TypeScript, all nice modern web techniques. Today he is here to talk about Puppeteer and all the cool stuff you can do with that. Please give a warm welcome to our next speaker, Önder Ceylan.
Hi everyone. We are all in VIP lounge. I think we are the lucky ones today. Thanks for joining. I'm going to talk about Puppeteer. Puppeteer is a Node.js API for browser instrumentation. But usually people think when you talk about Puppeteer, they think about UI testing, they think about crawling. So you don't think about further things that you can do using browser's capabilities. My ultimate goal today to inspire you for all the possibilities you can do using browser instrumentation. And I will get some help from minions because I like minions. I like putting themes into my slides. Minions are quite like Puppeteer scripts to me. They are small, they are helpful, they work day and night. They save time for us. But scripts are not yellow. I cannot promise for that. This is me. I'm working for a consulting company in the Netherlands called Linkit with the role of JavaScript squad lead. And I help ITNX and GDGNL organizations on co-organizing events, speaking at them. And I'm knowledge-driven. I like sharing knowledge on the topics that I'm passionate about. You can follow me if you like on Twitter. First, start with the Chrome. Chrome is the most used browser in the world. Most people love it, some people hate it, but most of us developers, we use it every day. We spend a lot of our time on it. And it ships in three shapes. Chrome as you know it. And there's Chromium, the open source base of Chrome. And there's Canary, nightly builds of Chromium. So you can download Canary to test experimental features. It's released every night. But be warned that there can be failures because it's experimental. And this is basically Chrome. We use it for browsing mainly. We search for things, we navigate through a page, we use Web Inspector. It's quite a powerful tool. Via the Web Inspector, we can do many things, and we'll talk about that as well. And not so long ago, Chrome engineers introduced headless Chrome. And by putting these parameters into your Chrome execution, you can run Chrome in a headless mode, which means you don't need graphical user interface anymore, and you can run it on servers, in any server basically, in continuous integration environment, in your cloud functions, anywhere. And this opens a wide door of possibilities for us, and we are going to discover these possibilities today. I have a lot of demos today, 21 of them. So I will try to be quick. Please don't worry about taking notes. All of the demos, all of the code that I'm going to show, they are all available on my GitHub account. I will also publish the link at the end of presentation. Just relax, watch the show. Continue with Puppeteer. Puppeteer is, as I told in the beginning, is the Node.js API for Chrome instrumentation. And you can install it by running npm install Puppeteer. Please don't do it now because it downloads 150 megabytes of Chromium bundle with it. That's default behavior of Puppeteer. You can disable this default behavior by putting some environment variables like skip download. Then it will just skip downloading the bundle. It will just directly install the API. And this is directly from their documentation. Most things that you can do manually in the browser can be done using Puppeteer. So I'd like to encourage all of you today to think about all the things you do manually every day, observe the common patterns you do, and you can all automate that. And I will show you some of the examples of them. But from the documentation, again, these are the examples that they advise you to for using the ways of Puppeteer. You can generate screenshots and PDFs. You can crawl a single page application and generate a pre-rendered version of it, doing server-side rendering. You can automate form submission. You can do UI testing. You can do keyboard input. You can capture a timeline trace of your application to help diagnose performance issues and also monitor it over time. And this is basically how it works. You import Puppeteer into your Node.js script and then launch it. So I cannot use my pointer. This sucks. Okay. So I'm just going to point. You can use page goto to navigate to a specific page, and then use any other API call. In this case, it's screenshot. And when you call this, it will just save the screenshot in the path provided. And this is the documentation page of Puppeteer. You can see there are a lot of APIs that you can use. Some of them are CDP session, dialog, file chooser, frame, browser itself, page is a quite powerful one. But we will see about them in the examples. This is a playground where you can test your Puppeteer code. It runs on the cloud. You can just visit even on your mobile. Execute this Puppeteer code. For instance, this one executes saving a PDF file. And then you see the result as a PDF file. You can even save it on your mobile. And you can run examples. There are predefined examples on right top corner. And you can select those examples, edit them, and introduce your own script even. This is a repository that I see quite helpful. It shows all the nice tools that are built using Puppeteer's capabilities. There are rendering and web scraping related, testing related, image generation related services, so many examples. It's a nice repo, you can keep track of it. I will share all the links as well. And this is also a helpful extension that I want to also stress. By using this extension in your Chrome, what you do, as I told in the beginning, Puppeteer is mainly thought of using as a UI testing tool. And what this extension helps us, it records all the UI actions we do on the page. When you are on the page, you click on navigation item, you fill some form, you click on form button, and then it records all these actions, user actions, with the selectors on the page, and it converts it into Puppeteer code. You can just copy paste it from the extension itself, put it in your Node.js script, and you're done. A couple of demos, just to start with. Who is here know these people from these regions? Alex, Sander, Alan. Who are them?
Speech synthesizer voices.
Yes, they are. Alex is from States, Sander is our Dutch friend, Alan is from Belgium, Yelda is Turkish. So this is an example. This is an example of text-to-speech. So you can just let's run it again.
Puppeteer can automate that.
You can just put any of your text to speech over your CLI. As you notice, it opens Chrome browser, so you cannot run this functionality on headless mode, but still, it's cool to use, it's cool to play with.
Puppeteer kan het automatiseren.
For our Dutch friends.
Puppeteer kan het automatiseren.
And this is from Belgian accent.
Puppeteer onu otomatikleştirebilir.
And this is the Turkish version. My brother is here today. I'm pretty excited to talk in front of him. This is especially for him. And I have more example that will shame me in front of him. This is the voices that you can use from Chrome itself. There are a lot of voices with different languages. You can just plug them in and play with them. And I was telling that use them in your daily workflows. This is my daily workflow. Sorry, bro. Yeah, no hard feelings. I use this script. We have this family group in WhatsApp. My mother expects me and my brother to send like daily check-ins. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Have a nice day. This kind of stuff, you know. Like I am alive. Just know that I am alive. So, and every day, every morning, we put some effort, like how to differentiate, like emojis, like different greetings, you know. So I wrote this script. It will be also available in my GitHub account. So it differentiates the emojis. It differentiates the greeting. Like it creates a message, and then it just sends it at a specific time. I use it as a cron task on my computer now, but I'm gonna move it to cloud soon, and I will just differentiate the time and then forget about it. And on Fridays we have like special type of message, so that's also implemented. And this is how it works. It's with less effort, you can do this kind of things, this kind of life hacks. What I would like to stress in this example, it uses the user data directory. It's important in our scenario because when you use WhatsApp web, the way it authenticates over QR codes, you need to use your mobile application to authenticate your web application. And then eventually the session is stored in your browser. And in order to keep your session, you need to save that browser information in a specific folder. And this is how you can do it with Puppeteer. You need to provide a launch argument, which is user data directory, and then it will keep all the user info in that directory. And rest is just UI automation as you know it. It navigates, it waits for selector, it types specific tests for a certain element, it clicks an element, and again it types another text, and eventually it presses enter to send the message. This is another example that I want to show. It emulates color scheme. So we are all putting a lot of efforts in introducing dark modes in our applications because that's the most priority in our products, you know. And Puppeteer version 2 introduced this functionality for you to emulate the color scheme. Until now, it was quite hard to emulate, to test this functionality. But with just simple call, page.emulate media features, and then you provide your media feature, and then your value is done. You can save a screenshot of this, and you can also do visual regression. I have another example for visual regressions. Next example is about side-by-side page load. This is also interesting to test different versions of your application under different circumstances. For instance, this emulates a device emulation. It also emulates a CPU throttling, a network throttling, and you can customize all these environments. This shows how you can, first of all, use the arguments to locate your browser. So you can provide window size argument to your Chrome, and also window position, how to open that window. And then another interesting one is page.emulate. Then it emulates Nexus 5X. And there are a lot of devices that you can import from Puppeteer/device descriptors. And you can just get values, device values by getting Nexus 5X object from that import. And it will emulate the page. And then you can send this command network emulate network conditions, and emulation set CPU throttling rate. We will see how these commands work. Don't worry about it now. But you can customize it as you wish. Another example is element to PDF. This can also be interesting for document generation. It's really hard to crop a specific document, right? What you can do, you can render your document in your web page, and you can just, as cropping process, you can just select an element from your page and just print that element. That's also possible with Puppeteer. Of course, you can print full pages. And this is how it works. What I'm gonna show here is page.evaluate. This is very important to know because it kind of opens a portal for your web page. So the code here you see is your Node.js script, but you open a portal in the callback of this function to your web page, so you can execute JavaScript code in your web page. What it does, it just finds that element, that tweet, and then sets it as body content. So it replaces all the content of your page, and then it generates PDF out of that content. Another example is accessibility test. Nowadays we use Lighthouse CLI or Lighthouse in the browser for this kind of audits. But keep in mind, Lighthouse is also using the principles that I'm going to talk in this talk. So it's it will be quite valuable for you to understand the fundamentals of this kind of tools. What this script does, it introduces X as an external CDN script, and then it evaluates your application's accessibility features. And it's as simple as calling at script tag, and then you put your CDN script URL. Eventually open a portal in your application and X run document. You will see how many violations you have, and you can use it as a test. So this is a jest test in the repository. You can run it as part of jest execution, and it will fail if there is a violation in the page. Another example is code coverage. This is an interesting one because it uses Istanbul code coverage tool to show you JavaScript coverage levels. So JavaScript coverage and CSS coverage is a concept that you can measure the coverage of your JavaScript execution and CSS execution. For instance, you load a bundle of 1 megabyte, but maybe the page that you're rendering and using is just using 100 kilobyte of that bundle. This kind of test can help you to code split, to minimize your bundles, to load bundles based on your URLs, based on your routes, and provide much, much faster applications to your users. By using and utilizing this kind of tests, you can make sure you don't have coverage troubles, you don't have bundles that are having a lot of code that is not used in your page. Detect them and then just fix them. It's also implemented without much effort. PTI is Puppeteer to Istanbul package for our reporting. And you collect coverage logs by calling page.coverage, then start JS coverage, and then you navigate to a URL, and then stop JS coverage, then it will create the report for you when you call this PTI, right? Chrome DevTools, one of the most used tools that I use every day. I love it. I use a lot of features of it. And I was amazed when I noticed that I can automate a lot of things that I do manually on Chrome DevTools. What you can do over the interface, you can track memory usage. You can run audits, like Lighthouse audits that I mentioned. You can emulate devices. You can throttle network, and so many other things. And actually, it's just an interface, web interface. If you undock your Chrome inspector and inspect your Chrome inspector, then you will see and you will access the code and the elements inspection of that web interface. And this is the code of that web interface. By doing that, you will also have a possibility to introduce yourself into protocol. What is protocol? You can enable this protocol monitor by navigating Chrome flags enable DevTools experiments, and then you need to restart your Chrome. And after that, you need to go to experiments and enable protocol monitor. By doing that, you will have another tab showing up here, and it will show the footprint of every action you do on DevTools inspector. So every action, every click you do on the inspector actually creates this communication to instrument your browser. You can see what's going on when you take a certain action on your DevTools inspector, and you can repeat it programmatically. That's amazing, in my opinion. And in order to do that, you need to open remote debugging port. You need to execute Chrome with this argument. And it will open a debugging port with a port that you prefer. And by navigating to that port, you will see all the pages in that instance. In this example, it's linked NL. And then once you click on it, then you see the inspector as a web page. So this is not Chrome inspector, actually. This is inspector rendered as a web page. And this is how you can run Chrome instances remotely on any type of server and connect to that instance over this port to inspect the page running over there on that instance. You can also see the screenshot, maybe because you're running this headless instance in a server environment. Maybe you're not able to visualize it at all, but this allows you to visualize it and use inspector as you know it. It also exposes an API, and particularly WebSocket debugger URL is our interest here, because I'm telling these fundamental stuff because we are going to use them to make our scripts more efficient. So this URL helps you to connect your Puppeteer code to a remote instance. It can be an instance of a local Chrome instance running on your system, but it can also be a remote instance running on a server. Visit this DevTools protocol documentation. You will see there are a lot of methods, a lot of actions you can send over the protocol. And this is used by all Blink-based browsers. Edge uses it, Yandex uses it. Whatever using Chromium is using that, so you can instrument all the browsers using DevTools protocol. An example on inspecting the inspector, you can just call main send over protocol, and when you send this command performance get metrics, you will get all these metrics in your console. So this is how the protocol works. You send the command, maybe a payload, some options with it, then you get a result back. And this is also how you navigate to performance monitor on your inspector. This is how it translates to the protocol. So when you navigate to your performance monitor, it just calls page get performance metrics, and also for the screenshot you can use page capture screenshot. Then you also have the screenshot data. This is the protocol that Puppeteer utilizes. This is the protocol that some other tools doing browser instrumentation utilizes, like Lighthouse. There are a lot of protocol driver libraries. Puppeteer is a simplified Node.js API. Before Puppeteer, there was Chrome Remote Interface, is one of the most popular protocol driver libraries. But it enables you to use the protocol directly. That is kind of a problem. So you can just pick one of these drivers to write it in your favorite language. If you're a Go person, you just can use it with Go. But it would also mean for a simple task as you can do with Puppeteer in 1 or 2 lines of code, you need to write 75 lines of code if you're using Rove protocol. This is an example of a screenshot code using remote interface. But with Puppeteer, it's as simple as that. Can we use DevTools protocol with Puppeteer? Yes. And it enables an unlimited way of unlimited possibilities for us. And how you use it, you create Chrome DevTools protocol session. And over session, you have 2 options. You can listen on events. For this example, we are listening on animation created event, or we can send events. Animation enable, then animation set playback rate with playback rate 10. It will speed up animation playback rate on your web page by 10. So you will see all the animations going like crazy. But this is just one example, and you can use whole Chrome DevTools protocol commands with it. I also would like to introduce Puppeteer Core to you, because a lot of people, when we talk about Puppeteer, they think like, isn't it too much to download like 150 megabyte of bundle as a dependency just to run 5 lines of code, 5 lines of code of script? Yes, maybe it is, but there are other ways. Puppeteer Core is the Puppeteer, as you know, but without environment variables and without bundle itself. When you install it, it doesn't install Chromium bundle. At the same time, you need to keep in mind, Puppeteer is only guaranteed to work with the bundled version. Why? Because they introduce experimental features, experimental APIs with the Puppeteer, and if you're using your system browser, maybe it's not up to date, and then some of the calls, some of the APIs that you're using with Puppeteer might fail. But if you're using basic functionality, like taking a screenshot, then your system browser should be just okay. And the way you use Puppeteer Core, because it doesn't have the browser, so it will not actually work for you, unless you do these things. Excuse me. One of them is launching, not launching, but actually connecting to a launch instance via Puppeteer by calling puppeteer.connect. And WebSocket endpoint that I pointed out in the API of debuggable launch is actually used here. So when you get that value from the API of your debuggable instance, you can put it as browser WebSocket endpoint, then you will connect to that Chrome instance. Then you can start using Puppeteer methods. And another option is launch Puppeteer with executable path. So these two things are required if you're using Puppeteer core. But if you're using just Puppeteer with a bundle coming with it, you just call launch and it will launch the bundled version. An executable path can be system path of your system. And another package that is important to the case that I'm coming to is Chrome Launcher. How do you know the executable path in your system? We don't know it by heart. Maybe it's hard to locate as well. And this Chrome Launcher package just does it for us. It will find any Chrome executable in your system, then it will provide that instance with the port of it. It can launch it. What we are going to do, we are going to utilize these two. And the way Launch Chrome works, you provide some arguments to it, window size, disable GPU, headless. And when you launch, this is the Chrome instance. And via the Chrome instance, you can access the port, the process ID, and more. I would like to coin this term that I used, Puppeteer Lite, because Puppeteer by default uses download first approach. It downloads the whole bundle. What I would like to do, I would like to skip download if necessary, and only download it if it's not existing in the system of your browser. And I can use it by utilizing these two packages. I can check with Chrome Launcher if there is an existing executable on the system. And if not, I can install Chromium Bundle. And then eventually via Chrome Launcher or installed bundle, I can get the executable path or WebSocket URL and use it with Puppeteer Core. And this is how you can use it. You first need to, of course, import two of the packages. And then you provide some options for your Chrome Launcher. Log level can be variables as well. It will show every detail for you on the launching process. And once you launch, you will get the port. And via the port, we will just make a request to the debuggable instances API to get WebSocket debugger URL. Because that's what we need to connect to Puppeteer. And then when you're done with your Puppeteer scripting, you can kill your browser by calling browser disconnect and Chrome kill. I noticed that some people are getting sleepy after lunch, so here are some demos to wake you up. This is a demo which is very relevant what I just told. It's a library that I published around 3 months ago, and it's all based Puppeteer. It solves a specific problem. It's a Node CLI library. A specific problem is I'm a PWA enthusiast, and I develop PWAs quite often. And when you develop them and target both platforms like Android and iOS, you need to generate a lot of images, assets for your application. These are icons, these are splash screens, and if you're targeting iOS as well, then you need to generate a splash screen resolution for each device resolution, for each orientation. So it's a lot of images. So this script just automates that. It first goes to Apple device specs to get the resolution list and the scale factor, and then centers your logo in the middle of the page via Puppeteer, then takes a screenshot. It also uses background option you provide to the CLI. So you have the splash screens for all the resolutions that you target. You also have all the icons that you put on your manifest file, on your home screen, and you have all these icons set for you. It also updates your index.html with the meta if you like, your manifest.json with the meta if you like. So this is a good example of how you can utilize Puppeteer in a way that it saves a lot of time from you. I was doing this manually by opening image editors, saving sizes in different, or using some online versions. I think it summarizes well that you can also use the Chrome Launcher and Puppeteer core story. because I get some requests from users that maybe for them it's too much to download 150 megabyte of bundle for this kind of operation. Right now, it just uses system's browser. If it exists, if not, it will download the bundle. Next example is about my new friend. I met this guy 2 weeks ago in California. My example is just to make it not prettier, but more interesting with some effects. I call it Puppeteer Gram. So it will use Puppeteer to apply Instagram effects on the image itself. It also adds watermark, if you noticed. How many of you use third-party desktop applications to add watermark to the images in the past? I did it. I'm not ashamed. But not anymore. I will not do it anymore. I will do it this way. So much simpler. And this is how it works. It uses CSS Gram package, adding style tag. It gets original image dimensions by running page evaluate. It sets the viewport and takes a screenshot. Next example, what I call Puppeteer Flow. How many are you into TensorFlow? You can also use TensorFlow in a way that you can utilize it with Puppeteer script. How? I will just use object detection model here over this image. So when I run this script, it will introduce object detection model via TensorFlow JavaScript API. Then it will return me the result of the object detection over that image. I just run this script, and eventually I get this result. It detects 2 objects, not object, but yeah, you know, dog and bicycle. And you also have the bounding box. You can draw a bounding box. You can swap faces, and you have the score as well, of course. Next example, the code of that. Again, without too much of effort, a couple of lines of code. You get the image, and over image, you run in the portal in your page Coco SSD, which is our model, and then over model, you detect image. These examples particularly can be interesting to improve your developer workflow and also improving your product quality. It's about monitoring, and it's one of the most complex parts of web development cycle. It's not so easy to monitor your memory leak, for instance, or your performance issues over time. I will start with visual regression testing. There are a lot of packages that does visual regression, and over testing tools like Cypress, you can also do that. But you don't have to. With a couple of lines of code, you can introduce your own visual regression script. In this scenario, it just takes this full screenshot of the page. It can also be the screenshot of the element, so if you're just testing components. And then it will compare it with LookSame. LookSame is a package which compares 2 images, and if they look same, it returns true, otherwise it's false. And this is how you can introduce the test, doing that, just saving the screenshot for the first time, and if it exists, then it compares with that. Eventually, it tests with the LookSame, and if it looks same, your test will pass. Next one is DOM snapshot testing. Jest, I love Jest. Jest supports snapshot testing, but you can also use it with DOM. You can take the whole snapshot of your DOM and then test it against regression. If you don't expect any change in your DOM, for instance, you can catch this type of errors, this type of regression troubles during your testing process. And you can get your document object by calling page.content. It will return the full object tree of your document and then save it as a snapshot through Jest. And if you want to update it, you can just execute Jest with update command, then it will be updated without much effort. Timeline trace monitoring is quite important as well, especially if you like to improve a specific metric on your application. How do you know that you improved a specific metric? You can collect timeline traces over time. This is also part of monitoring. And Puppeteer, with calling page tracing start and page tracing stop, you can save timeline trace to the JSON, to the path that you provide. And you can just upload that JSON to this URL to see it in a graphical user interface, or you can parse it to catch the regressions over that JSON tree. Next one about FPS monitoring. So you can open your web page, do some interesting actions, user actions that can create GPU load. And eventually you can save a GPU load screenshot over FPS screenshot for the actions you took over time. You will see how much megabyte did you use over your GPU memory and your overall frame rate. So this works by sending the scrolling thing. That's also experimental new. People do a lot of hacks for the scrolling action now. You don't have to. You can use input synthesized scroll gesture with these parameters, then it will just emulate the scrolling. It also supports mobile, pinches. It has quite interesting stuff. And you just get a screenshot of that FPS overlay, which we call, by calling protocol send, overlay set show FPS counter. So it will just show up on the left top corner. And we take screenshot by clipping that left top corner. So we are not taking the whole screenshot of the page, just that corner. Memory leaks. How do you test memory leaks? Usually, not at all. Sometimes manually. You keep your application open, maybe for days, right? So you can use your continuous integration environment. For instance, keep your application open or mimic some behaviors, user behaviors on it throughout the night or throughout the week, if you like. And how can you detect that you have a memory leak? One way to detect it is using heap profiler. So you can detect memory leak by heap. Again, doing memory regressions here, it can be more interesting things that can create memory regressions. It's up to you. This time is, for the sake of the examples, just scroll. And you collect the garbage, and then for the end metrics, you compare JavaScript heap use size with the start metrics, JavaScript use heap size. And if it's more than 10%, it will fail. So this is not very straightforward test, but it will at least give you some alerts for the memory regressions you might have. You can also increase this threshold to catch them over 20% or more. Another maybe more straightforward, more valuable type of testing memory leaks is by prototype. Let's say you're creating instances of a specific object prototype in your web page, and you want to see that they are gone after all. When you're done with that action or with that part of the page, those objects should not exist in the memory. How can you test it? Over prototype. For instance, this example tests map object, and it measures if we have map existing on the page. But it can be another object. If you're a game developer, it can be like your character, whatever. So you collect the map instances, and then eventually you get the map instances created over your prototype, and you want to see them zero after a certain amount of time or after a certain amount of action. One other thing is security state. You can also monitor your security on your CI or on the cloud. For the certificate, for the connection, and for the request you're making, you can create regressions over your security issues. Again, using Chrome DevTools protocol, you can enable security enable, and then security state change it is an event that you can listen on. And it will just return these values after all, and you can create alerts if you have insecure result as part of this call. Another one is certificate expiration. This is a good one. How many of you had certificate expiration in last year? We forget about it. I don't know why. There are also free services out there. They can just send you emails before your certificate is expired. And you can run a Puppeteer script to also detect that. You can introduce it into your CI. How it works, it listens to response. On response event, if it matches your web page, it will show how many days left for the certificate coming with your web page. Then it will show you the result of that. In this case, it's like 400 days to go. Puppeteer on the cloud. So we can introduce all these ideas even more. If I have time, I can introduce 20 more. But how we can get the most value out of it? We can use them on the cloud. This demonstrates using them on AWS Lambda functions over serverless framework. It uses serverless Chrome Lambda launch Chrome function from that package. So what I mentioned earlier was because of this, because we need WebSocket debugger URL here. We are dealing with a remote instance, and we need to connect with that remote instance. As it was in my examples, you get to the API of the browser, and then over the API, you get WebSocket debugger URL from the body, and you provide that endpoint to your next script, which will be the launch script. So this is how you can use that endpoint. And it's your Puppeteer script as is. Nothing so interesting. So if you understand how to use debuggable instance of Chrome, you can start using Puppeteer Chrome instances on the cloud today, regardless of your cloud provider. Google Cloud, AWS, Firebase, and most of them, they provide Chrome instance by default, so you don't need to download the bundle even. And there are Docker images coming with the bundle itself. You can just utilize them. These ideas introduce PaaS, Puppeteer as a service. So there are companies, there are products using these ideas. One of them is browserless I/O. Let's say you don't want to work with a cloud provider. You can start using browser instances over browserless I/O. What browserless I/O provides to customers, it sells execution time of your Chrome instance. So it has an API, it returns you WebSocket debugger URL, and you can just connect to it, and you will be charged by the execution time of your instance. Another product is Checkly HQ. This can be interesting for monitoring or testing purposes. If you don't want to install whole pipeline, whole CI for your product, you can start using your Puppeteer monitoring or testing scripts today just visiting this website. What it does, it allows you to create scripts, and it also allows you to how often to run those scripts, and it generates reports out of those results. So you can keep over time the results of your execution, your tests, and your monitoring. It can also send notifications to you. So main takeaways of this talk. Chrome can be instrumented with WebSocket connection over Chrome DevTools protocol, which opens a door of possibilities for us. We can extend Puppeteer's functionality in a way that we can automate anything we do manually in the browser. You might not need to download Chromium revision every time by using Puppeteer Lite IDEA. Puppeteer Core and Chrome Launcher are the two scripts that you can use together. Headless Chrome can be executed on servers. It can be executed on cloud, on continuous integration pipelines. Almost all pipelines have Chrome with it. If not, you can download it with simple scripts, or you can just use Puppeteer as is. It will download bundle for you anyway. You can automate anything you do on DevTools by using raw protocol of Chrome DevTools protocol on Puppeteer over Chrome DevTools protocol session. Thank you. That was it. Thanks for your attention, and this is the URL that you can see all the source code, all the references mentioned in the examples in this presentation, and it's also pinned on my profile. You can write less GitHub Önder Ceylan, and then you will see in pinned repositories. Thank you.
Thank you very much as well. I mean, I love Puppeteer, but mostly for web calls.